Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Seriously, just humor me here. Picture a fairy tale kingdom, the drill lush forests, maybe a sparkling stream, and a castle sitting on a hill in the distance.
Right, the standard fantasy default setting.
Yeah.
Safe and sanitized.
Exactly. It's picturesque. It's the kind of place where birds land on your finger and sing in three-part harmony. You got it.
I have the mental image, yeah.
Good. Now zoom in. Look at the trees in that forest. Imagine that they aren't just standing there. Imagine that every single leaf on every single branch has a literal human eye blinking on it.
Which is deeply unsettling.
Thousands of them, all watching you. And if you look down, you might see a snail. Just a standard garden snail.
But not quite.
No, definitely not. If you accidentally step on this snail, it won't just crunch and die. It will remember. It will hold a grudge, like a multi-generational blood feud style grudge that will literally haunt your lineage.
It's a fantastic subversion.
It really is. We are not in a Disney movie today. We are stepping through a fairy door and jumping straight into the deep end for this audio overview. Specifically, we're doing a deep dive into Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett.
And this is a really fascinating text because it functions on two distinct levels. On the surface, it's a whimsical fantasy adventure. But if you look closer, and that's what we're doing today, it serves as a masterclass in speculative world building.
Right. We aren't just reviewing a novel here.
Exactly. We are analyzing a distinct sociological and ecological system. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the realm known as the Silvalupi, or where the trees have eyes.
Which, frankly, is the best and worst name for a country I have ever heard. I mean, it's incredibly evocative, but it's also just a giant do not enter sign.
It is a warning label, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the narrative physics of this world, how stories literally function as the architecture of reality here.
And we'll analyze how the protagonist, Emily Wilde, who is a dryadologist, a scholar of fairies, fights a war for a throne.
But the key insight here is that she doesn't use a sword. She uses footnotes.
Which is exactly why this source material is so interesting. It's academic rigor applied to high fantasy. So grab your notebooks and maybe a sturdy pair of boots because we are going in. Let's start with the entry point.
Yes, the door itself.
Right, because in most fantasy, you just wander into the woods and things get weird. But here, the barrier to entry is very specific.
It is. In the source material, the entry point isn't in England or Ireland, which are the usual suspects for fairy stories. It's actually in the Greek countryside.
Yeah, Emily and her companion, Wendell Bambleby, who, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read the first book, is actually the exiled monarch of this kingdom. They find the door painted directly onto the rock face.
And the description of the door itself is really tactile. It's not a glowing purple portal. It's physical.
It's described as wooden boards painted with a scene of pale stone and sun-dried vegetation.
Exactly. So it mimics the Greek landscape to blend in. But the detail that really grounds the magic is the doorknob. It's made of glass, and inside the glass, there's a literal splash of turquoise sea.
That small detail does so much work. It tells you that this isn't just a hole in the wall. It's a constructed passage. Someone built this.
And when you turn that knob, the transition isn't instantaneous.
Right. It's not like Star Trek teleportation.
No. And this is where the science of the magic comes in. They have to pass through a winter fairy's house. It acts as a sort of airlock between worlds.
Oh, I love that concept.
Yeah, you move from the dry heat of Greece into this cold, transitional space, a literal house belonging to another entity, and then finally step out into the Silvalupi. And the sensory shift is described as an assault.
It's lush green smelling of wet earth and heavy growth. It's a total atmospheric pressure change.
Definitely.
But let's get back to the biology of this place. Because we teased the trees with eyes earlier, the attentive oaks, I need to unpack this because the psychological implication of walking through that forest is terrifying.
It creates a panopticon effect. You are constantly under surveillance.
The text describes these eyes as having distinct personalities, too.
Yes, some are creased in rage. Some are widened in surprise, some are bloodshot. You aren't just being watched, you're being judged by the foliage.
And it's not passive surveillance, right? There are rules of engagement.
Strictly enforced rules. Wendell, acting as the native guide, tells Emily, don't insult them. Don't remove their leaves. It implies that the trees have a sense of self and vanity.
And then he drops that one line.
Mind your step in the autumn months.
Which just highlights the horror of this ecosystem because the leaves fall.
Exactly. Even when the leaves are rotting on the ground, the eyes are still open. They're still staring up at you from the mud.
That is just visceral nightmare fuel. I would never leave the house. I'd be tiptoeing everywhere.
You'd have to.
But the trees are stationary. The mobile threat, and I love this because it sounds so ridiculous on paper, is the snails.
The fairy snails. This is where Fawcett really plays with the ecology of the realm to subvert our expectations. In our world, a snail is the definition of harmless.
Right, it's just a bug.
But in the Silvalupi, they possess what the text calls a true intelligence. And more importantly, they have a complex social structure based entirely on dignity.
So they have egos.
Massive ones. The text warns that if you step on them or insult them, they will dedicate their entire lives to a revenge quest.
But they're snails. How fast can they possibly exact revenge?
That's the point. It's not about speed. It's about inevitability. It might take them a decade to reach your bedroom, but they will get there.
Wow.
It turns the environment into a minefield of social etiquette. You have to be polite to the wildlife, or the wildlife will hunt you down.
It perfectly captures that fairy vibe where the whimsical and the deadly are indistinguishable. You laugh at the snail, and then 10 years later, you're in trouble.
Precisely. And speaking of things that look one way but act another, we have to talk about the guardians.
Oh, these are Wendell's royal soldiers, right? Initially, they present a glamour. They look like pale, majestic owls.
Which fits the aesthetic. Owls are wise, royal, a bit spooky. It creates a sense of nobility.
But that's the trap. When they drop the glamour, the biological reality is horrific.
The text describes 6 massive, spiderish limbs erupting from their torsos. And their eyes aren't the wise eyes of an owl. They're milky cataract eyes.
So giant spider owls with vision problems.
Effectively, yes. It reinforces the theme that this kingdom is poisoned or corrupted, which we'll get to. But despite these terrifying threats, Emily and Wendell aren't facing this alone. They bring an army.
But it's not exactly the Rohirrim riding over the hill. It's a motley army of outcasts.
It's a very chaotic, very specific demographic. You have trolls who aren't really interested in the war. They're just checking tree stumps to see if they're good building material.
Prioritizing the carpentry over the combat.
Exactly. You have tree fawns described as hideous with scabbed horns. And then my personal favorites, the Fuchswerge.
The fox fairies.
Yes. Foots, meaning fox, werge, meaning dwarf or gnome. They travel in what the author describes as an auburn river.
The standout character here is Snowbell, right?
He is. He's a fox fairy with a very high opinion of himself.
He provides such a great counterpoint to the horror. There's a line where he's speculating about Wendell's enemies, not tactical speculation on how to defeat them, but culinary speculation. He wants to know what they taste like.
It adds a layer of levity, but it also underscores the alien morality of these creatures. They are allies, but they are still predators. They are cute, but they will eat your face if the social contract allows for it.
So we have the setting, a forest that watches you filled with vengeful snails and spider owls. Now let's pivot to the reason they are there, the politics.
That's the core conflict.
Wendell is technically Prince Lyeth, returning to claim his throne from his stepmother, Queen Arna. But the realm he's returning to isn't just politically unstable, it's physically sick.
The state of the realm mirrors the state of the leadership. This is a classic Fisher King trope, the idea that the land and the king are one entity.
Because the usurper Queen Arna is corrupt, the land has become poisonous. It's physically rejecting her rule.
There's a description of the King's Grove that really sells this. It's supposed to be this sacred space, but it's now a yew grove filled with black, oily sickness.
And yew trees are traditionally associated with death and graveyards in folklore, so the symbolism is heavy there. Wendell tries to heal it with his blood, doesn't he?
Yes, a very traditional fairy king ritual, but the corruption is too deep. The land rejects the cure. It's like the immune system of the forest is totally overwhelmed.
And the antagonist, the stepmother, isn't even there to fight in a conventional sense. She has fled, but the description is weirdly specific. It says she fled like a fallen leaf decaying into soil.
That imagery suggests diffusion. She hasn't run away to a fortress. She has dissolved into the metaphysical fabric of the world. She has retreated into the veil, a space only monarchs can access.
But she left a trap behind.
She did. And this trap is the psychological crux of the book. It's not a bomb, it's a dilemma.
It's a trap based on the cycle of violence, right?
Exactly. The setup is this. The land is poisoned by her essence. To cleanse the land, Wendell must destroy her. But if he kills her, he perpetuates the act of violence that started the mess.
So he heals the land, but he corrupts his own soul in the process. He effectively becomes the next monster.
Which is a heavy burden for Wendell, considering his personality. We should touch on that contrast. He is a powerful fairy lord, but he acts like a pampered aristocrat on holiday.
That contradiction is his defining trait. There's a moment where Emily observes that Wendell is a terrible guide to his own kingdom.
He really is. He knows exactly where the bathing pools are because he likes to relax, but he has no idea where the throne room is.
He summons a tea set out of stones in the middle of a war zone.
It highlights the clash between human efficiency and fairy logic. And this brings us to a critical point about navigation in this world. Maps in this realm are described as nonsensical. A mountain might move on a Tuesday simply because it feels like it.
So if geography is fluid and the politics are magical, how do you actually navigate? You can't use a compass, you can't use a GPS.
You use stories. And this leads us to the absolute core intellectual concept of this deep dive, the sandstone theory.
Let's break this down because this is essentially the thesis of our analysis today. What is the sandstone theory?
It's a theory proposed by the fictional scholar Ferris Rose within the book, but it applies to a lot of folklore studies in general. The thesis is you must pay attention to the stories the folk tell of themselves to understand fairy.
So stories are the literal architecture of the world.
Exactly. In the Silvalupi narrative, causality is stronger than physical causality.
Meaning if you are in a situation that resembles a specific story, reality will bend to make sure the story plays out.
That's it. It's like gravity. If you step into the role of the avenging hero, the universe will force you to complete that arc, even if you don't want to. Emily realizes that their current predicament mirrors an obscure folktale called King McCann's Bees.
Okay, let's unpack King McCann's Bees. What's the plot?
The arc is simple and tragic. A usurper kills a king. The rightful heir returns. The heir kills the usurper. But then, and this is the kicker, the heir is cursed to become a cruel, desolate king like McCann II.
It's a closed loop of misery. The story demands a tyrant.
Precisely. So if Wendell plays his part, if he acts like the hero and kills the villain, he actually loses. He becomes the next tyrant.
The narrative physics dictate that outcome. So Emily realizes they can't just fight harder. They need to research a loophole. They need to find a variant of the story with a different ending.
Which leads to one of the best moments in the narrative.
Yeah.
Wendell is out there doing high magic battling spider owls, and Emily literally leaves the fairy realm in the middle of a crisis to go to the library at Trinity College, Dublin.
It highlights the absurdity and the brilliance of her method. She doesn't train with a sword, she goes to the archives.
She finds variants like the shoemaker and his lost queen and the winter gardener. She is fact-checking the prophecy to see if she can break the narrative rails they are stuck on.
She's treating a literal magical apocalypse like a dissertation defense. I love it.
And that research leads to some incredible detective work. This is where we get to the butter fairy.
The butter fairy. It sounds like a joke, but it's the linchpin of the mystery. Emily and her colleague, Niamh, find a fairy stuck in a tree. She's described as a peevish, red-faced creature clutching a block of butter.
Muttering about the milk and my lady.
But the key detail, the Sherlock Holmes detail, is her origin. The text notes that this specific classification of fairy is native to Somerset in England, not Ireland, not Greece.
So what is a Somerset fairy doing in the Silvalupi?
That's the aha moment.
Wow.
It implies there was a broken fairy door connecting Wendell's realm directly to Somerset, and this connects the political plot to Emily's personal history.
Her grandfather, Edgar Wilde.
Right. Emily has her deceased grandfather's journal. It turns out Edgar didn't just study folklore. He physically found a door to this specific realm in Exmoor, Somerset, decades ago.
Which perfectly explains the Somerset fairy. She just wandered through the back door.
Correct. The journal reveals that Edgar met a lady in a crimson cloak. That lady was Wendell's stepmother. Edgar learned about the door to death, the entrance to the veil from her.
So the grandfather's research from 30 years ago provides the key to entering the villain's lair today. It's all connected.
It creates a beautiful narrative symmetry. Emily isn't just finishing Wendell's fight, she's finishing her grandfather's work. She is closing the loop on her own family history while trying to break the loop of the kingdom's history.
I want to talk about the squad they assembled to govern this place too. And we mentioned the fox fairies, but the actual council Wendell forms is revolutionary.
It really is. Traditionally, fairy courts are ruled by the high fae, the beautiful, terrible nobility. They look down on the common fae. But Wendell forms a council that is shockingly inclusive.
He puts a brownie on the council.
That's like putting the cleaning staff in the presidential cabinet.
In the context of fairy hierarchy, yes, absolutely. Brownies are house spirits. They are service workers. The little housekeeper who saved him gets a seat. Elevating one to the High Council is a radical political statement.
It shows that Wendell, despite his frivolous exterior, is actually interested in changing the structural problems of his kingdom.
And there's also the Lady East Wind on the council who just stares hungrily at Emily.
Right.
Which is a fun dynamic.
Right, keeping your enemies close and all that. And we have to mention Niam Proudfoot. She's such a fascinating character. She's a human scholar who went missing 30 years ago.
But because time in Faerie is fluid, she hasn't aged a day. She's been living there, effectively serving as the court scribe.
What I love about Niam is that she treats the terrifying Queen Arna not as a monster to be feared, but as a research subject to be documented.
She's the ultimate academic. Oh, you're an ancient evil destroying the land. Hold on, I need to cite this.
It's a coping mechanism, certainly, but it's also a weapon. By observing and categorizing the horror, she maintains her agency. She refuses to be a victim. She remains an observer.
It allows her to survive in a world that should have eaten her alive decades ago.
Meanwhile, back in the mortal world, Emily's colleagues Ariadne and Ferris are dealing with their own angles. Ariadne is at the museum looking at fairy stones as weapons, and Ferris reveals he actually knew Emily's grandfather.
It all ties back to the academic foundation, which sets us up perfectly for the climax.
Let's get to it. They track the stepmother to Queen Anne's Isle, a disappearing island. The stepmother is waiting. She expects Wendell to kill her. The story of King Macan demands it.
And this is where the subversion happens. This is where they break the sandstone theory, or rather use it against itself. Wendell refuses to kill her. He completely refuses to play the role of the tragic, vengeful king.
But she's the source of the poison. If he doesn't kill her, the land dies. How do they solve this?
They use words, capital W. That's the ancient magic system of the book. It's not waving wands. It's using the fundamental language of creation to alter reality.
And the specific word they use, this is my favorite part of the entire book. It is so anticlimactic in the best possible way. What is the word?
To find it, they visit a half-bogle woman in a rhododendron meadow, again going to the margins of society for help. The word they retrieve was originally intended to cleanse the blood. Specifically, it was a spell to cure hangovers in livestock.
You are kidding me. They saved the kingdom with a veterinary hangover cure.
It makes perfect sense if you think about it laterally. The realm is poisoned by the stepmother's corruption. It's an intoxication of the land.
Okay, yeah.
The word is designed to purge poison from the blood. So they apply this humble agricultural spell to a high fantasy curse.
That is brilliant. It's a victory of cleverness over brute force. It's so Emily Wilde. It's not a holy sword. It's a detox.
It completely deconstructs the chosen one narrative. The day isn't saved by destiny or raw power. It's saved by obscure library research and a practical charm for drunk sheep. It emphasizes that solutions often come from the most unexpected, humble places.
So the realm is saved, the poison is purged, Wendell is king, Emily is queen. But she's a very specific kind of queen.
She is. The traditional happily ever after would have her sitting on a throne, ruling by his side, giving up her old life. But Emily refuses to stop being a professor.
The dynamic in the end is lovely. They are married. The text refers to wedding gifts scattered throughout the narrative, but the contrast remains. Emily wants to take notes and interview monsters, and Wendell wants to go on picnics and be adored.
There's that scene where Wendell sends letters to Emily while she is back in the library. He's complaining that he offers her a castle and magic, but she prefers dusty old tomes. He's basically jealous of the books.
And the wedding gifts he gives her are perfect. He doesn't give her the crown jewels. He knows her better than that.
No, he gives her a room full of blank journals. And crucially, he repairs a fairy door that leads directly to the New Forest near Cambridge.
So she can commute.
Exactly. She is a queen of fairy who commutes to her job as a tenured professor. She plans to publish her map book and attend a conference in Berlin.
That is the ultimate work-life balance right there. Ruling a magical kingdom on the weekends, grading papers on weekdays.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it reinforces the book's central message. You don't have to give up your identity to fit into a story. You can rewrite the ending to fit you.
So what does this all mean for us? We've covered eyes on trees, vengeful snails, and a hangover cure that saves the world. What's the big takeaway for you as a listener?
I think the core theme here is the rejection of the tragic narrative. The book argues that we are not bound by the stories laid out for us. Wendell survives because he ignores the script. He refuses to be the tragedy.
And Emily saves the day, not because she changes who she is to become a warrior, but because she leans harder into who she already is, a dedicated researcher who reads the footnotes.
Precisely. In this realm, and perhaps in ours, knowledge is power. Not fireball-throwing power, but the power to understand how the world works and how to change it.
Here is a thought to leave you with. The source material mentions that stories in fairy are more powerful than magic. If stories shape reality there, and Emily is now writing the official history of the realm, is she simply recording history, or is she writing the future of the kingdom?
That is the dangerous question.
Right.
When a writer becomes a queen, the pen might be mightier than the sword, but it's also a lot heavier.
Something for you to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Check out the book. It's a wild ride.
Indeed. Until next time.